Good afternoon and welcome back to the Aspire2B Teaching and Learning with Technology conference. For those of you that joined us, it was a fantastic morning full of great keynotes, discussions and presentations that you can all watch back on demand, if you like, if you've missed any parts via our YouTube channel or via our social media at Aspire2B. Now, kicking off this afternoon on our digital empowerment focused sessions, we'll soon have Mr. John Tate with us. John is a decorated author of several great books that I'm sure he'll introduce you to, and now a Director of School Improvement in Yorkshire. Following John's keynote, we are then going to have some breakout sessions that will offer you the chance to focus in on specific details within Apple, Google, and Microsoft, all streamed on separate streams, which we'll give information on shortly. But they'll all be carried out by us, the expert EdTech trainers here at Aspire2B. To access these demo links then, what you'll need to, after John's keynote coming up, you'll need to visit our conference hub site, which has been set up on a Google site, which, as you can see on the screen, it's bit.ly/A2B Conf 20 Hub. Now on there, you'll find a link to this morning's live stream, this afternoon's, and then the individual streams for all of this afternoon's demonstrations. What we'll then do at 3:30, I believe, later on this afternoon, 3:30, Digital Roundtable. That's where we've got 4 great guests who will join Matt and have a real in-depth discussion around current issues and technology, emerging technologies. So, kicking off then, like I said, Mr. John Tate. He is a man whose books, to be fair, inspired me earlier on in my own career. John, welcome.
Hi Ryan, how are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Saw that you were very much involved this morning during your travels on the motorways.
Yeah, absolutely. I was at visiting one of my schools this morning. Finished there mid-morning, and while I was in the car, about a 40-minute journey home, I kind of hooked my phone up to the Apple CarPlay and streamed it all the way home. So
fantastic, great to hear.
Modern technology.
The new job going well?
Yeah, very good. Very excited. Did it for about a week and a half now. So really enjoying it and looking forward to some kind of new normal, whatever it may be in September. Yeah.
Quite right. Excellent. Well, without further ado, then I'll leave you in the capable hands of Mr. John Tate.
Thank you very much indeed. And it's great to be kind of here and kind of speaking to you all from kind of up in the northeast of England. And it's been great to kind of hear all the previous speakers earlier today, all really talking about that really digital empowerment and how we can really move things forward. And certainly I really want to kind of focus on that. What I want to do is this afternoon is talk about blended learning for the whole school community, though. I think we've heard lots and lots, not just today, but generally in the press, in our schools, in our staff rooms, in our learning communities about blended learning for students, and how that's really important now, with lockdown. But I really want to make sure we don't miss out, 2 of the pieces of the jigsaw there. So not just kind of students, but I really want to focus this afternoon on the other 2, which are teachers and parents. And hopefully this will be quite kind of visionary for some people, but also packed with lots of kind of practical ideas of how you can actually make this happen in whatever setting you are, whether you are primary school, secondary school, college, university, whatever your domain is. Hopefully I'll have something for you this afternoon where you can kind of move this forward. So thinking about this, taking advantage of the new normal. And I want to talk about 3 things really, and I've kind of interestingly, I tweaked this already at lunchtime because I stole a phrase from one of the speakers earlier this morning in terms of that kind of digital disruption and really thinking about. I think technology has been there and it's been ready to disrupt the new, the kind of status quo for a long time, but it's met that kind of opposition of whether it's a skill set, whether it's people's confidence with it, whatever it is. But I think it's just been thrown into the limelight with COVID-19. And there's a lot of awful things that have happened with this, but I really think it's an opportunity for us to not go back to where we were a few years ago. And I really feel we've probably moved forward 5 years and 5 months in terms of technology, because I think the tech's been there, the expertise has been there in terms of in certain pockets, but it hasn't really filtered through, in my opinion, to every classroom, all teachers, all students, all families, But I think really now it really has, and it's really given us a platform to move forward with. I think that, you know, this idea that, again, thinking about teachers here and parents in terms of their own learning, so not just the learning of our students, but people want things on demand now. We're a human race now where we expect to just pick things up and be able to have it on demand. You know, why not? Why can't I have that available now? We've seen that over the lockdown with people being able to, to watch things, Facebook Live events, or watch it back later. Even if it was a Facebook Live event, it's then been posted on the channel later on. People have been watching, Gary Barlow, Robbie Williams, all different types of people at various times, literally live streaming, and then being able to watch that later. So I do think there's a real opportunity for us to take advantage of that and take advantage of people's expectations now of what the norm maybe is now in terms of that. And also, as a school leader, what I've really been interested in is the online learning that's gone on for staff again. Really homing in on for professionals now. There's been an incredible amount, in my experience, of hours that staff have done on their own learning during lockdown, which would probably never have happened previously. And yes, that's maybe because people have had a bit more time and they've been kind of at home with those tools. But I think that even previously, there would have been lots of people that would have turned their nose up to sitting in front of a laptop and having somebody talk to them and thinking, well, oh, that's not very engaging. I'd rather go to a conference myself or speak to someone. I think that's really changing, and I think there's really a tide of change now where people are far more comfortable and far more relaxed about the fact that they can sit and take advantage of some online learning. And as we know, and as we always advocate for our students, then that's great because they can actually pause, rewind, stop, go back to it, watch it again. It's not just a one size fits all. If you missed what I said, then sorry, it's gone. That moment's gone. Like we would say with flipped learning, if anyone's familiar with flipped learning, the ability to then to pause it, to go and get a drink, to come back, to rewind it 20 seconds, to stop it and Google it and find out what they said, or actually to stop it and try to do something and go do something hands-on and then play it again. That's the beauty of it, and I really think we need to take advantage of that as we move forward. Moving on, I want to talk about it's a great quote I've got there. Anytime, any place, any path, any pace. It's a quote from Julie Young, who's the CEO of the Florida Virtual School. And I've seen Julie speak a couple of times. And the Florida Virtual School is exactly that. It is a completely virtual school where students log in and they have everything online. Very much, in fact, very similar now to a lot of how universities might be actually conducting their business over the next 12 months. I've heard a lot of universities talking about it all being online. And it's this idea that this can happen and it can be successful. And I just want to pick apart why that's successful and why that's really important. And also for you to think about, again, thinking about that one of the first slides I had, staff and parents. So, no, we're not talking about students now, but actually, why is it important for them in terms of their learning? Well, first of all, in terms of the first icon there, your schedule, learning means learning has far more impact on us when we want to learn. I think that's really important for us to really understand that and really get that in our minds, that when we're forced to learn, when we're forced to turn up after school at 4 o'clock for a whole staff professional development session, then we're kind of thinking, well, yeah, I don't want to be here because you've told me I have to be here. That's kind of how our mind works. When it's on your terms, when it's on your schedule, it means far more impact. So when I'm ready to learn, now that might be when I'm lying in bed, it might be while I'm sat on the toilet, it might be while I'm waiting for someone. It doesn't make any difference. The fact that I'm ready to learn and I'm open to that, therefore there's a far better kind of fertile learning conditions for me to be able to access that, understand it, and take it in, rather than when it's been forced upon me. So this idea that kind of a lot of online learning is on our own kind of terms means it probably has far more impact. The next thing, in terms of being accessible on your own device, like I demonstrated this morning as I was chatting to Ryan there, I was able to stream all the presentations this morning as I was driving. I didn't need to download anything. I clicked the link, I was in, I was off and go, plugged my phone into my car, and my 40-minute journey home mid-morning was, I was learning at that time. So it doesn't need to be on a desktop computer. You don't need to be sat in a building. Actually, let's make this really accessible on any device. It doesn't need to be, we've heard this morning about Chromebooks and iPads and desktops. Well, actually, let's make sure it's available on anything. It doesn't matter what you've got. let's remove that digital divide by saying, oh, it's only available on this, or you have to have this. Let's just make it accessible to everyone at any point, make it as simple as possible for people to engage in. And finally, your needs. This has got to be bespoke to you. And I'm really, really passionate about professional development that is done with you rather than done to you. And it should be about what your professional needs are, not what necessarily the professional needs of the whole school are. Think about your school, think about your staff, think about the range of expertise and abilities in your staff. There's bound to be a huge gulf and difference between the least experienced and the most experienced, or the least skilled and the most skilled, whichever way you want to kind of look at that. So it's about thinking, well, if I want some professional development on questioning, or how to use Seesaw, or how to use Google Classroom, or on assessment for learning or feedback, doesn't matter what it is, I should be able to get it. I should be able to get it on demand, on tap. And we shouldn't have to be saying, oh, well, the next professional development day isn't coming up until June, or it's not until January, or I wish you were at the session last week, that's when we did it. That's not good enough anymore, in my opinion, in the day and age we're now living in, with all the technological ability that we've got and the infrastructure and the way we can actually make this happen for very little cost. So it's about giving people it whenever they want to, because actually if I want to learn, there shouldn't be a barrier in front of me that says you can't learn, because ultimately we're not ready for you. I want to learn, let me learn, and then let's really move that forward. So I hope I've given you a little bit of a vision there in terms of my kind of passion behind that kind of learning, and how it's really important for parents and teachers. And I'm going to talk to you specifically about each one and what it looks like for them both. So let's look to start with teachers. What might this look like for teachers in your school, and how can we move that? How can we move that forward? First of all, I think that we can really give staff some real innovative and high quality professional development, and that can be in one of two or three ways really. The way I've really used it really successfully and kind of to really engage staff has been through a flipped learning approach for professional development. So we've still done face-to-face sessions, but that's been supplemented with a video that's gone out 24 to 48 hours before the session, which gives the main ideas and the main concepts behind what's going to be discussed in the session. Now, anybody who is familiar with the flipped learning approach, you will know how important that is and how successful that can be and how much impact that can have for students, because you're not having to spend time going through the foundations and the basic knowledge. There's more time for the students spent actually doing something in the class because they've already got that foundational knowledge. The same therefore goes for professional development. Why can't we give that the same way for staff? Why can't we do that for staff? So we can create a video, it can go out, and the session can be far more practical based on what's already been learned in the video. Secondly, you can just create one-off, standalone videos, that can be accessed by staff. So you can have a whole range of videos on everything, like I said, from assessment to feedback to questioning to pace to challenge, and then into all of your kind of technological solutions. And it can be all there. So whenever I want to access that, I can access that really, really easy. Moving on in terms of external speakers, not just creating things yourself, but there's a multitude of reasons why you would want to use external speakers, maybe for their credibility, maybe for their expertise, maybe for a different voice. And there are thousands and thousands of great professional development videos. Beth mentioned it earlier this morning about getting onto YouTube and seeing what's already there. Things like research ed conferences that have been happening, or research ed home conferences that have been happening in the last few months. Loads of videos where you might want to actually use some of those already kind of great presentations and give them access to your staff. Yes, they could find them on YouTube, but they might not know where they are. Let's make it easy for them. Put it in a central area for them. Let them have it. Podcasts as well. Like I mentioned this morning, me driving in the car and learning while I was sat there. I'm sat behind the wheel for 45 minutes. I'm either going to be listening to some music or looking out the window. So let's use that kind of dead time, I suppose, to do some learning. And if you're someone like me who might travel 45 minutes or 30 minutes either way to your school, there's an hour a day you can be doing learning, listening to podcasts, or even an audiobook, whatever kind of floats your boat. But there's options to do that and to bring that to the forefront for your staff. And finally, on this slide, the blogs and articles. Lots of great articles, blogs, things from websites. Again, they're all out there. How can you pull that together so that it is on demand for your staff, and you create that almost like a knowledge library? where you can potentially, whether it's in a Google Drive, whether you want to use something like a Microsoft Teams, however you want to do it, but categorize it. Here's 8 great articles on feedback. Here's 10 great articles on curriculum design. Here's whatever, find them and be the triage really for that in your school, cutting through, the jungle of kind of all the blogs out there and bringing the best things to your staff, so they don't have to kind of go away and find them. Okay, moving into parents then. What does it look like for parents? And this is an area where I think that sometimes schools really forget about. And what I'm really passionate about is making sure that we triangulate that. We teach our students really, really well. We develop our staff, but we then make sure we include the parents in this, because without them, things start to fall down outside of school. The first one there is the science of learning. And lots and lots of parents, most parents, if not all parents, want to help at home, but generally a lot of them feel like they can't because they don't know Shakespeare, or they don't know physics, or they're not that skilled with kind of mathematics. But actually, there's lots of ways that they can help if they would just let into that kind of science of learning. And what I mean by that is all the work that we are now learning about memory, about retrieval practice, about how we can space and interleave things. Let's let the parents in on that as well, because if the parents understand that the best way of retaining information is to actually do something with it, that idea that you kind of use it or you lose it, and the more times we retrieve information, every time we retrieve it, it creates a stronger memory trace every time. So parents can then start helping with that by timing, how long they are studying for. Then they'll ask them some questions, all those type of things. That if we just let parents in on those, almost the secrets of the trade, almost, then they can be massive advocates for us at home, and we can start to then actually add value at home as well. And it's not just about what you do between 9 and 3 o'clock, but actually how can the parents add some value to make sure that knowledge is retained. And again, we can do that through some videos, through some actual professional development for the parents. Why not create some videos, some short, sharp videos for parents on how they can do this, how they can help at home, some specific strategies, because unfortunately, most parents, when we were all at school, and again, I'm kind of categorizing us all in the same age bracket here, but we probably all learned or revised, should I say, in poor ways. Rereading our notes, copying things out again. All the things that we know now don't have any impact, but create a significant amount of time. So they'll go back to what they know, and their experience with this might be quite poor. So we need to upskill the parents in that. Secondly, practical study tips. I did when we first went into lockdown, I did 2 weeks every single day. I did a new video for parents on how they can help at home. What they can do, short and sharp. Things like as simple as having a flat desk to work on, removing mobile phones from the room and distractions, making sure the area is well lit, timing it for only 20 or 25 minutes, asking questions, checking for understanding. All those things that actually parents need to know, and let's kind of via video and via some kind of a short kind of training tips, or making it like a video blog where it's a chat. And that's what I did at my last school. We sat and we chatted almost like a chat show to parents, so it felt very informal, and it wasn't a training session for them. It was very informal, and we were just letting parents in on those tips. And finally, on that, school news. Every school in the land has school newsletters, things that go out like that. Actually, why not use the ability of video now to actually make that a little bit more engaging? And that kind of idea of let's kind of we will talk to you about things. We'll interview people. You can see how things work. We'll do a tour of the school. We'll talk to you about this. There's a new member of staff. Let's make it more engaging. And those videos can be very easily hosted on your website, on your social media feeds, all that type of stuff. Let's think about something different rather than the bog standard letter that goes out that probably, as a parent, when you get it home, probably turns you off a little bit. How can we kind of make things a little bit different to really push the boat out and use technology? Or let's use both. Let's do the letter and let's do the video as well, so that there's a range of kind of experiences there for parents, depending on what they'll choose to engage with. Okay, let's look at how we're going to achieve this then. We've talked about what that might look like, and let's look at how we're going to achieve it, and some tips, some practical tips. And I want to talk to you about both of these people now, teachers and parents, because how we're going to do this is very, very similar. Accessibility, it's got to be really simple, and that's really the key. First thing I've got there is limit the logins. lots of us have got virtual learning environments. We've got kind of access to to Google Drive or OneDrive, all that kind of stuff, and we can host lots of things. But for me, it's about limiting the logins. As ridiculous as it sounds, if people have to click more than once or twice to get into something or put their password in, they're probably not going to bother. And that's kind of where we are now, in that kind of on-demand, quick fire. I don't want to have to press more than twice to get into it. So for me, the simplicity of this morning and the live stream that you're watching now was that I clicked on that YouTube link before I set off from my school this morning to drive home, and it was on. I wasn't having to log in. I wasn't having to kind of find a password. It was bang, straight in. And that's what we need to be thinking about. So I think for me, YouTube is a great place for that and for those videos to live. I always get lots of people kind of saying, yeah, but we don't want everyone to see that. Well, what don't you want people to see? If you're educating people about how students learn in your school, then actually not only is that great for parents to see it, it's a great probably prospectus really for your school, that your school know what they're talking about. It's great for Ofsted to see that. Some people every now and again are worried about, well, what happens if the school down the road see it and pinch it? Well, it is what it is. The secrets that you're kind of giving aren't really your secrets. You've probably read it from a book somewhere. You've been told it from somewhere. It's not a national secret. So I think that I wouldn't worry about that, and I would just make sure it's easy, limit the logins, one click, something like YouTube, perfect. Next, chunk those videos. Make sure, in my experience, less than 10 minutes. Again, the way we are now as human beings in the human race, the fact that if you clicked on a YouTube link and you saw that it was 19 or 20 minutes long, you probably wouldn't watch it all. You'd probably scrub through it all. So have it as single figures, 8 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 9 minutes. Far more palatable, far more likely that people are going to watch it all the way through. And this idea of simplicity, the simplicity is the real complexity of it. When I first started doing videos for staff, for parents, etc., I tried to make it really complicated with lots of kind of graphics on the screen and all this kind of stuff. People don't need it. And I've really grown to know and grown to realize people don't need it and they don't really want it. You ask any students now of the videos that they watch on YouTube, what are they? It's someone with a mobile phone, and that's it. Those are the highest ranking videos around. There's kind of some kind of a simplistic beauty of that as well, of just seeing somebody in front of a camera with nothing else, sat in their home or at their desk, talking to you like, as if it's a one-to-one conversation. And again, going back to maybe the experiences that you've had through lockdown of watching the things I mentioned before, whether it's Gary Barlow, whether it's Robbie Williams, whatever it is, just actually sat, Jason Manford's been doing them, just sat actually chatting to their phone. So don't worry about the kind of, I need to be upskilled with this and this. Make it real simple, make it real easy, and we can make it far more accessible. And lastly, we need to then get it out there. How do we get this information out there? How do people know we're doing it? So first thing is a range of social media. We have got really used to kind of using things like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, but it's understanding what the market is, and certainly for understanding that my experience is that parents are on Facebook, other schools and organisations are on Twitter. It's a bit more professional, and Instagram where all the kids are. If you're only using one of those, you're missing out on a certain markets. So it's how you can use things like Instagram TV, to do it in a different way, and making sure you understand all of those markets, not just one. Scheduling tools, something I kind of worked out when I went down to the Pet Show 4 or 5 years ago. It kind of blew my mind that you could actually schedule when these things go out, because I was always in charge of social media, and it would go out when I wanted it to go out or when I'd remembered on my kind of phone to put it out. But actually, we need to be more strategic in that, and your messages, your videos, your communication to parents and your training needs to be going out at 11 o'clock in the morning, that kind of coffee morning, kind of mid-morning kind of idea. Between 6 and 8 on an evening, into that prime time, Sunday evenings, when people are kind of logging on again. It's using what you already know about the trends of our digital consumption and being really smart with that. And using schedule tools like Hootsuite, Loomly, lots and lots of them are free that are available for your schools to get those messages out and to be putting that YouTube link out with your training on for parents, whatever, at various points. And then a back catalogue. It's all well and good putting things out every now and again and having a frequency of output from your training, but people need to be able to access it, later on, whether it's in 6 months' time, whether it's in 6 days' time. So where does that live? Where does your back catalogue live? Does it live on your website? Does it live in a drive somewhere? If I want to go and find something, I need to be able to find it. So making sure that's really obvious for people, whether it's parents, whether it's staff, and also you've then got everything in one place. If anything I've said has interested you there, like Ryan had said, I've written a few books that you can find me on Amazon. One I want to kind of highlight, I suppose, my new book, which is out in about 4 weeks' time, in the middle of August. Teaching Rebooted. It's about the science of learning. So if you were kind of interested in what I was talking about the science of learning and kind of that memory and cognitive load, dual coding, spacing interleaving, assessment, and how you can then transfer that into the classroom and also then into the homes of your students and your parents, then that's for you. And I've really tried to distill all that information and make it really easy, from NQTs upwards all the way to senior leaders. So that's out next month, which I'm really excited about. So that's that. I've tried to be short and sharp, and hopefully give you some vision there, some inspiration, as well as some real practical ideas of how you can not miss out the parents and the staff in this blended learning kind of revolution or evolution, whatever we're going to be calling it. Because I really think, going back to that first slide of taking advantage of the new normal, and everyone's kind of consumption trends now, that we need to make sure we triangulate that with everyone. So hope that's been useful. And Ryan, back over to you, and I'm happy to kind of answer any questions if they've come in.
Excellent. Thank you very much, John. I'm sure there's a lot there that people can take away from. For me, I think the range of multimedia that sort of you're engaging with the whole school community, that's really fantastic to see. It's not just traditionally a letter going home, or you're being very innovative to, again, you mentioned across multiple social media, so it's taking the information to wherever the families are engaging with the school, which I think will continue as the new norm, I suppose, if you like. You mentioned a lot there with sort of the communities, but I want to focus in on your specific remit, if you like, in senior leadership. So very much we see technology as a internal, inside the classroom sort of usage. What benefits have you seen as a school leader, as in the senior leadership team, of technology supporting and facilitating an SLT?
We've huge benefits really over the last kind of few years in terms of, I suppose, productivity. And one thing I'm, again, really passionate about, I suppose, is that there's been a huge amount of money spent, or should I say wasted, on technology over the last 10, 15, 20 years, where people without the vision, without the foresight, and without the kind of plan of how it's going to be rolled out, have replaced a pen and paper with an iPad, and the kids have done exactly the same kind of thought processes. Hence why lots of studies are demonstrating that, from the EEF and things, that technology isn't having the impact that it could have. However, as we all know, research only tells you what has worked, not what can work. And that's for me the difference, that actually that people haven't necessarily been kind of having the impact that it could have because they haven't been using it properly. So to actually get to answering your question, what I think has a far bigger impact is how we can use technology to make teachers' lives easier, quicker, more streamlined, because that then frees up time, energy, all sorts of money if need be as well, to spend more time, doing the right things in the classroom, whether it's planning engaging lessons, whether it's, spending time with the students, whatever it is. So that's been a really big kind of passion of mine, to make sure that we are as productive as possible, we're as streamlined as possible, and it frees up a lot of those kind of normal, general paper administrative tasks. Even things like productivity, where you've got shared lists with people, on certain apps. And I was certainly using Microsoft quite heavily until I've kind of moved to my kind of new role now, which is very much kind of Google centric. But the Microsoft idea, and we used to use Wunderlist and To-Do apps and that kind of stuff, where shared lists, where if I'm in a shared team with you and I've asked you to do something, when you've done it, you tick it off. I get notification to say you've done it. I'm not having to then think, has Ryan done this? I need to check with him. Easy, quick wins that all from your phone can just make you really smart, and to-do lists, note-taking apps, all that kind of stuff. Matt was talking about his note-taking kind of app on his Apple Pencil. To have those things whenever you want to, and to feel empowered, I think that's a real key kind of benefit of technology for productivity.
Excellent. You briefly mentioned then your new role. Then I'm aware that the Academy has got multiple locations, and you're planning to use Google with that. Tell us a little bit about your plans on it.
Yeah, there's 3 schools in North Yorkshire, beautiful kind of North Yorkshire market towns, probably around about 30 to 40 minutes away from each other, maybe 20 to 30 minutes away from each other. All schools are using kind of G Suite, and they're using Google Classroom, and it's been interesting to see how as well they've been using it in the for year. They've all got sixth forms, so for year 11s into sixth form in terms of bridging materials and how they've been setting kind of work even over lockdown through Google Classroom to be working on over the summer. So that's been really useful. They've been using Google Meet quite a lot, and again we are certainly preparing for life either during or after COVID, but also what that might look like if there's a second spike. But certainly utilizing the technology we've got and using Google Classroom. Something that I've been looking at really recently, which Matt gave me a tip off about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I've been looking forward to this, and it just launched last week, was Google Currents, and being able to have that kind of internal social network where staff can be in groups of subject areas, so all the maths teachers across the 3 schools in one area, and they can be sharing ideas, they can be posting things, they can kind of commenting on links and liking things, and really having that collaboration across the whole kind of trust. So that's something I'm currently building in the background, and I was eagerly waiting for that to arrive. I think it was the 6th of July, but that's kind of really fresh at the moment in terms of so I really want to kind of be an early adopter on that and kind of move that forward. So that's something that you get back to me in 6 months, I'll be able to tell you, it'll be awesome.
Excellent. I've seen from your social media, you've dived both feet into our online learning platform, aspireed.online. How are you finding that?
Yeah, it's great, and something I was going to mention actually, when in terms of like external speakers, I looked down at my clock and it was ticking along, and I thought I need to shift on. But when we talk about external speakers as well, the AspireEd platform has been brilliant, and certainly my previous school that I just left, we were in the middle of a digital transformation from kind of Microsoft moving forward to kind of Google Classroom, and we had planned for that training to be face to face, as you know, but obviously things happened out of our control, and we are where we are. So the ability for our staff to be able to learn at their own pace through the Google Certified Level 1 has been brilliant, and I've even been using it with my son as well, who's in kind of year 11, about to go to kind of to sixth form, and it's been great. So anyone that's kind of watching that's kind of thinking, well, I'll have a look at that, I would highly recommend that, because again, going back to that idea that I talked about, it's on your terms, it's at your pace, whenever you want to, pause it, stop it, give it a go, get up, go to the toilet, whatever it is, watch it on your phone, watch it in bed, doesn't matter. The idea that it's on your term. So we've really benefited from that, and I think it's been great. And certainly the more, I just think it's a new norm. And I also think that, if you think whenever you need to learn something, what do people do now? They Google it or they go to YouTube. My son used to be massively into kind of all the Mario games when he was a lot younger. What did he do if he got stuck on a level? He went to YouTube, he watched a walkthrough. That's how we do it. Why shouldn't that be the same for questioning in the classroom or feedback or assessment? It's exactly the same. We learn in the same ways. So let's just make sure it's available to people.
Excellent. You mentioned podcasts. I love a podcast personally. Again, I'm about 30 minutes away from the office when we're in as well. So I'm a big fan of throwing a podcast on and driving, listening to. And what sort of ones you sport, or are you just ed tech? What sort of areas are you looking at?
I've tried to find as many different kind of education ones as I could, I think, and certainly from whether it's kind of like the learning scientist and then that kind of like science of learning, whether it's I used to listen to every week religiously to Pivotal podcast in terms of behavior one. It's generally kind of those, and I got into a habit of kind of listening to them quite often and following, and it was just that idea that if I'm at the wheel, then actually I can be doing a bit of learning while I'm sat there. I'm a serial non-finisher of books. I kind of start books and get them, and publishers send them to me, and I never get. But actually, sitting in a car, well, I've got an hour of dead time every day. So from an audio book or listening to a podcast, I can do that learning rather than thinking I have to find that hour of time later on. When you get home, if you've got kids and that kind of stuff, so it can be difficult. Whereas in the car, why not? So I'd highly recommend people to kind of look for those. There's some great ones out there, it might just open up a new world of kind of learning for you while you're sat there, or if you're on the train, or whatever it is, however we commute.
I try to have a balance myself. Certainly, listening to some ed tech ones, but the sporting ones I find are a real nice way to start the morning. So, big advocate of podcasts.
Yeah, like whether people are in the gym or whatever it is, it's actually how can you find that time to be doing a bit of learning? And there is time in our days. It's just using that kind of accessibility for it.
Definitely. John, there's a couple of comments coming through, all positive, I think, going forward for you. So I'll direct everybody to your Twitter handle, @Team Tate. There's a few, Jonathan Simons in particular has mentioned saying he's definitely going to get your new book. So that's all positive. A lot of people have been inspired from your keynote this afternoon. So John, with that, thank you very much, and look forward to catching up with you soon.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'll see you back for the roundtable this afternoon.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and it's been great so far. Either it's been in the car or here, whatever it is.
No, it's great to have you on. Cheers, John.
Cheers.
Okay, so now, well, coming up in a couple of minutes now, we've got our Apple, Google, and Microsoft Live demonstrations. These will be some breakout sessions that are going to offer you the chance to focus in on exactly what will best support you going forward. Like I've said, they're all carried out by us, the expert EdTech trainers, if you like, at Aspire to Be. What you'll need to do, the link is on the screen at the moment now, it's bit.ly A2B Conf 20 Hub. And I'm sure that'll be posted in the YouTube chat as well. That's where all of sort of the next part of the afternoon, if you like, will be hosted. There's a lot of links to our live YouTubes and a bit of there's resources and examples that'll be posted in there. They're going to support you with your own independent learning, if you like. If you don't get hold of that link in time now, or for any you're watching this back, go to our social media at Aspire to Be. And that will, again, link up to any of the sessions you might be interested in attending this afternoon. And then what we'll do, so this link that you're currently watching will pause. There will be a holding screen up, which will then reactivate later on when Matt starts the digital roundtable at 3:30, where we've got John back, we've got Lucy, Hannah, and Derek, who are three great other guests, so the 4 in total, and Matt. And they'll thrash out some really sort of topical conversations about EdTech at the moment. So for now, go and grab yourself a cup of tea or coffee, get the devices that you sort of want to follow the demonstration on, sit back and follow on with either G Suite, Microsoft, or Apple Live. For now, see you later.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome back to the Aspire to Be Virtual Conference 2020. We hope you've had a fantastic day. I know that everyone involved so far, certainly from our end and the speakers, has thoroughly enjoyed it. And thank you for returning for what is the last but not least section. It's probably the one I've been looking forward to most all day. We're welcoming back our two keynote speakers, but we're also bringing in some friends of Aspire to Be, some friends of the company who we know well, but actually who we know who have made fantastic inroads in their respective roles and how they've been able to apply technology for teaching and learning, both on a number of scales. So I think we'll crack straight on with our digital roundtable section, and we'll bring in our first speaker or our first participant, Hannah Matthias, who is the e-learn manager at Cardiff and Vale College. Hello, Hannah.
Hi, Matt. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Fantastic. And next up, we'll bring in Lucy Kirby, Director of Digital Greenhouse in Guernsey. Hi, Lucy.
Hi there. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. And yes, we'll be bringing back in, we have Derek People. Now, Derek brought, if you were tuning in this morning, he delivered our first keynote speech of the day, head teacher at Parkhouse School in Newbury. Hi, Derek.
Great to see you again, Matt. Afternoon.
Good stuff. And John Tate, who kicked off the afternoon for us with another fantastic keynote speech, Director of School Improvement and Deputy CEO at the Arete Learning Trust. Hi, John.
Afternoon, Matt, again. Afternoon, everybody.
I'm glad I got through that. There's a lot of people to introduce, a lot of pressure to get it all right. But thank you very much for joining and coming back into this last part of the day, which really we've tried to provide as much as we can throughout the day in terms of supporting educators, school leaders with enough support in what is a challenging time as we know it. So I really appreciate you giving up your time and being able to attend and hopefully give your insight and kind of expertise on a number of questions. So at the beginning of the week, we went out to all of the delegates and we just said, look, can you please, if you've got any questions at all, fire them in, and we'll put them to the panel, so to speak. So the first, we've got a number of questions, and we'll kind of fire them around each other. I'll come to you individually at various points, but very quickly before we start, we'll just do a quick introduction, 10-second intro, if you wouldn't mind. Hannah, would you mind kicking us off, please?
Yeah, I'm the e-learning manager at Cardiff and Vale College. I've been there for 4 years now, but been within digital learning industry for coming over 15 years, I think. So it's been a while, and it's been a very interesting few months, but a good, interesting few months because it's I've met all my KPIs within the first week of lockdown, which was brilliant. So it's good for me, but yeah, steep learning curve for a lot of people, but it's been very insightful.
Oh, I can imagine. I've got a couple of things I want to ask you about that as well, which I know that you've been up to. Lucy, welcome. Same for you, please, if you wouldn't mind.
Hi, so I'm Lucy. I'm director at the Digital Greenhouse in Guernsey. We're Guernsey's innovation and entrepreneurship hub, and we work directly with education, industry and government to move forwards the digital agenda for the island. We're all about industry partnerships and how we can improve outcomes for learners by getting them really sort of future ready, thinking about the skills that our economy needs. We're an island of 65,000 people. So, and rather to make you all jealous, completely out of lockdown, but only on our island. So we've got quite a different context, but we have to absolutely make sure our young people are ready for those challenges for the economy. Most of them want to stay on the island. So it's about how do we build those skills for our economy and work with the schools to do that.
That's brilliant, thank you. We spent a lot of time on Guernsey, as you know, and it's fascinating the extra challenge it brings within that area. As you say, how do you create those opportunities, which I'm sure we'll find some more out about shortly. Derek, nice to see you again. For those of you that weren't here, can you give a bit of a brief intro as well, please?
Of course. So Derek, I'm the head teacher of Park House School in Newbury. That's an 11 to 18 academy of 1,100 young people. I've been the head there for 17 years. Difficult, I know it is to believe. We most recently have become one of the country's 40 NCCE hub schools. So we are responsible, proud to say, alongside Aspire to Be, as one of our key partners for the delivery of CPD for hundreds of primary and secondary teachers. In the lockdown period, that's continued, and I'm delighted to say, actually, we're the highest performing hub in the country in terms of the volume of courses which we've been delivering, but also particularly working with young people as well in relation to A-level computer science and some remote teaching there as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And last but not least, John. Hello.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I am newly, in the post, only been a week and a half really, Director of School Improvement and Deputy CEO at the A2B Learning Trust up here in North Yorkshire. We have 3 secondary schools and 6 form colleges in beautiful North Yorkshire market towns. Previous to that, I was Deputy Head at Acklam Grange in Middlesbrough for 6.5 years. I do a lot of speaking, writing, blogging, tweeting about kind of digital technology as well as kind of school improvement and leadership. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. That's brilliant. John, I'll stick with you, and if you wouldn't mind kicking us off with the first question, please. A lot of today has been around professional development, and we've asked you to come on to deliver a keynote, particularly around that, because we know how much you've done in that field with your various, with your last school, and I'm sure your current school now, but also some of the books that you've written, which really helps support staff with that. So really the first question is around what advice you can give to schools who are looking to begin, in particular, a digital professional development program for educators, which is really, we find at the moment, a very much quick reaction to the situation that we find ourselves in. So how would you advise them to kickstart that as a process?
I think, first of all, I'm picking up on some of the things I said this afternoon in my talk, that it's taken advantage of the new normal. You know, like lots of staff are now very comfortable with accessing digital learning in whatever shape or form that is online. I think that's moved forward hugely in the last few months. So certainly it's taken advantage of that, because there is a natural tendency that when the proper normal kicks in again, not the new normal, when we kind of get back to a proper normal, that we might slip back into those old kind of habits of just doing things the same as they were, and having just, you know, 3 PD days, you know, and a couple of disaggregated days, and, you know, going back to that traditional model. So I really think it's about taking advantage right now. And secondly, once you do really establish that, it's to make it as easy as possible and as accessible as possible. And I talked about the less logins as possible. You know, make it, you know, just make it available. You know, like today, 1 click, YouTube, you're in. Make it really easy, really accessible, and chunk it. You know, nobody wants to sit for an hour, 2 hours and listen. You know, let's get down to single figures. If you want to do something about assessment that you think is going to take ages, chunk it into something, you know, to do 6 or 7 different little videos. So we can actually, you can open it and it's 6 minutes. You know, you can watch it on your phone. It's easy, it's accessible. You can watch it wherever we consume, whether it's, you know, do you take your phone to the toilet? You know, what is it? Where are those moments where you can actually consume that information in a bite-sized chunk, rather than thinking, I've got to sit here for an hour or 2 hours. Let's just really chunk it, small, easy, digestible format. So that would be certainly my real quick takeaways.
No, that's fantastic. I think as an approach, keeping it manageable is key, isn't it? And as you say, we are in the new normal now. And Lucy, if I can come to you with that same question, but I suppose given where you are, and I know some of the things that you've done in the past within education as well, does your kind of advice on that change slightly, given your experiences?
Yeah, I think I'd absolutely echo a lot of what's just been said there, and John's made some really good points. But I think for us, what we're seeing is also the value of partnership working through that. So reaching out into your local community to get the support that's going to encourage your educators to maybe look at different ways of working, and also to share that information back as well out into industry as well. We've seen a number of our industry is now wanting to work much more closely with the schools, because they can work virtually as well. So the ability to get someone to just drop into a staff meeting, into a professional development session, I think there's a real value around professional mentoring that can be done from education pairing into industry as well. Particularly, I think interestingly, particularly for our computer science teachers and our specialist teachers who might not be subject matter specialists from degree, actually, if they're now in those environments, can we now, through this new normal of being able to work more virtually, connect them with people in industry who might be able to give them much more confidence that they can take back into the classroom to then share with their students, so that we get a bit more industry practitioner partnership. I'm really interested in that area at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. It sounds really interesting. I think what I find most interesting when we talk about digital skills is, particularly with students, we talk around that differentiation side of it, and also age phase. Now, Hannah, obviously you're working within a college environment. Does the approach that you take differ at all based on the staff that you're working with and the students that they engage with on a day-to-day basis, or is it relatively the same?
I think we all have similar issues. One thing what we've tried to do is make things available all the time. So we're trying to move away from inset days throughout the year and trying to encourage staff to take a bit more ownership of their own CPD. So we're promoting a lot of online resources. So we're a Microsoft college, so we promote the Microsoft educated community to staff quite a lot, and they get quite involved in the badges. They get quite competitive with gaining badges, which is good. So we've kind of taken that approach into our CPD, which we just did a 2-week long online CPD at the end of term, which went down really well, not only because we incentivized it by giving out codes for each session so that they could put it into a Power App, and we had a leaderboard and there was prizes to be won. So they got really excited about that, a bit too excited. It was more successful than we thought. So the level of points we awarded for the prizes wasn't high enough. We should have set it a lot higher, because it was they just went mad for it. So yeah, it was great. So I think we're going to take that forward now, because it was so successful. We'll probably end up even using it with students too. So the incentives seems to work really well. But I think that also, because a lot of our staff are part-time, a lot of them work evenings, having the ability to record sessions and make them available. So we're now building on what we've done and looking to put in place a more kind of usable repository of content for CPD, and try and make it quite smart that it's personalised as well. Because I think a lot of staff get a bit disheartened when there's just one size fits all for CPD. We don't push that for our teaching and learning. So CPD needs to be the same for our teachers too.
Absolutely. I love that idea as well. It's the competition element never leaves us, does it? It's fantastic. No. I think to pick up as well on it's Derek, sorry, we'll come to you in a second. The next question is around how do you measure the success of a digital strategy? You kind of, if I can stick with you for a second, Hannah, you've answered that in part. But you mentioned earlier on, I thought I've got to ask you around the KPIs, and I was just curious as to how that links to measuring the success of a digital strategy, and whether you can share some insight into that as to what it looks like, and basically what you found, particularly over this initial period where we've been in lockdown.
Yeah, so we have we call it technology enhanced learning in our college. So yeah, we've got a strategy in place for that. It's supposed to be like a 5-year long strategy, but we hit quite a lot of those markers in the 5-year category this year. So for instance, we had in the KPIs that I think it was like 85% of staff would be using technology enhanced learning throughout their delivery. So that was obviously met, because we continued with full online delivery, where there was live, like asynchronous and synchronous delivery. So there was lots of live sessions going on. So that was kind of easy to kind of hit, but also bring your own device was also on our KPI. So all our staff had a device. We managed to get them all a device quite quickly to take home with them so they could continue that delivery and provide our students devices who couldn't afford them. But we're now pushing forward with our proper BYOD strategy. So we're rolling out that all learners will have the ability to purchase a device through, we're working with a company called Academia to make that available to them. So yeah, it's kind of pushed things to the forefront and accelerated things a lot more than we were planning, but it's for a good thing. So now I have to revisit my strategy and update it now so that we keep pushing things forward. So yeah, it's been good, but it's been really tough, and I'm amazed at how well the teachers have done, to be honest. They've done really, really well.
I think it's fascinating, and little insights like this, I think, just go to demonstrate how much the current situation has really impacted everything. And Derek, you talked a lot about this earlier on in your presentation in terms of what is the impact of this going to be in the future, and I suppose looking ahead to the future now, if we're looking at measuring the success of a digital strategy, how have you done that previously, and how do you think that might change now over say the next 6 months?
Well, firstly, thanks for coming to me last, Matt, after such brilliantly comprehensive and insightful answers by all of the other colleagues concerned there. I would just say that everything that you were saying there was resonating around the seizing of the moment and the dynamics. And I was just taken back to 2005-06 when the emphasis for young people was on personalised learning. And for me, I think it's about the personalisation of delivery of CPD now, because I think we've learned how flexible we can be, and it doesn't need to be in those sort of chunks. But I guess my observation on your specific question is that when we're thinking about the recovery phase of delivery, we also have to be recalibrating what our expectations are around impact, and really thinking carefully about that and consulting with our teams about that to really understand what is going to be achievable. And I think we've also got to think, and I don't in any way want to sound pessimistic. It's just about being, I guess, realistic. If we have to also think about what could happen later on in the course of the year, we need to ensure that we've got contingencies in place there too, to be reactive to any change in circumstance. So I think it's combining a strategic approach with also the ability to be reactive should those circumstances change. Absolutely.
Recalibrating the expectations, I think, it really sums it up nicely, because in some ways I think we're not entirely sure what those expectations are going to be either. So it's trying to find enough insight from things like this or across social media which can really inform it. And see, go on.
I just think as part of that process, the importance of dialogue within our schools, within our colleges, within our teams is going to be absolutely critical as part of that process. It's going to have to be co-constructed. Absolutely, yeah, definitely. And Lucy, if I could come to you on that with the measuring the success, because not just your current role, but in previous roles, of course, you were looking at how do you implement a digital strategy, not just across a school, but across a whole island. So, how do the measurements of success change in that respect? And what does that mean, I suppose, at this moment in time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the measurement of success of a good quality, of a good digital strategy, for me, comes down to those three elements coming together and the interplay of the three elements. And I think that is, infrastructure. So, we've heard about the need for young people to have access to devices, for the practitioners to have access to devices as well, good quality connectivity, that it's there and it's instant. I think also then is the skills. So do we actually have the skills as the people delivering the content? Because content delivery in an online environment is completely different to a classroom. And then you get into the joy, which is blended, and quite what that can mean. And maybe the idea that someone can be on a laptop and the rest of the class can sit and mull around them. And actually, that's a very, very interesting concept that you have to think through. And then thirdly, it's the culture. And I think actually without having those, without one of those missing, then a digital strategy can't perform, because it's not just about giving access to kit. It's not just about giving access to training. It also has to come with cultural change. And are we talking about actually the fact that we need to have a real shake up and innovation about how we work as schools, what we expect from our practitioners, how we work with teachers, industry, young people, parents. I think that cultural piece is where you then get the other two enabling real change. And so for me, it comes down to, yes, we can measure outputs. So in really simple terms, you can get some good output measurements in the short term over your digital strategy, but longer term, we've got to move to the OKR approach. We've got to be looking at objectives and those key results. What are we ultimately trying to achieve in the longer term? And for me, that's where we've got to be thinking, what's the future for our young people? Where are they going to be going out into world of work, but also from a community perspective, even how are they going to be bringing up their children? And therefore we need to be thinking about how we're working with them now. So I think there's like a short-term measurement of success, and then there's the longer-term objectives that you can be putting into play as well.
Absolutely. I think what you've highlighted is this isn't easy, is it? It's a very complex system, a very complex approach. It's not just a case of putting technology into a system and expecting it to work. There's so many other elements which they're all interrelating. And I don't know about you, but I've been down this road and I've certainly made mistakes along the way. And this is one of the questions that we've had is, what mistakes have you made or lessons learned from your digital approach, which I think is really important, because whilst we're here talking about this, we don't always get it right. And like I say, I certainly haven't. I think those mistakes have informed as much of any digital strategy, I would suggest, as anything that has actually gone well. And it's difficult for me to choose who to come to first on this, because it's almost like I'm insinuating you've made mistakes, but it's really not. But I'd love to hear about the lessons learned. And John, if you don't mind, I'll come to you first, just to kind of tee us up with this. What are the real kind of things you think, I wish I changed that, and now with the benefit of hindsight, I can make that approach different next time?
Yeah, and I think I'll speak here kind of nationally as well as kind of locally and personally. I think there's been an enormous amount of money wasted on technology because the plan hasn't been thought through. People have bought things because it's shiny. People have used things because it's technology, where actually what change in thought process have the students had to do? If you just put an iPad in front of students and get them to do exactly the same as they would have done with pen and paper, nothing changing. So going back to that previous question of, well, how can we tell if it's successful? From a school point of view, and I get the fact that we're also preparing students for kind of life with technology, but from a school point of view, when you get down to it, it's got to improve outcomes. It's got to actually do what it says. If it's just a case of we're spending a significant amount of money on technology and doing the same things we were going to do with paper, then it hasn't really worked. So I think there's lots of mistakes made from people going out to bet with an open checkbook or with a budget and coming back with some great things that they've seen that they themselves like, but haven't thought about the plan moving forward in terms of what am I buying it for? What's the outcome going to be? How is it going to improve outcomes? How is it going to make a difference to these students? And lots of that technology then gathers dust on shelves because the person buying it's been excited, but they haven't thought of their plan. So that for me, and then there's a whole host of kind of reasons why other technology has been wasted and mistakes made. Things like interactive whiteboards. You go around schools now, the vast majority of people don't use it as an interactive whiteboard. They use it as a projector screen. You could replace an interactive whiteboard for most people with a can of paint on a wall. So again, it's the projector that makes the magic for a lot of people, not necessarily the actual whiteboard. So I think there's lots and lots of lessons that we have learned that we would do things differently previously. I don't think every classroom in the whole school, in every school, would have an interactive whiteboard, for instance. They'd have a projector, But for a lot of people, I see people come in interviews so many times who touch they touch the whiteboard expecting it to be able to just touch it and actually point to something, and it shifts across to the next slide, and they're like, oh, I didn't know it was going to move. So there's all these things that we, you know, that are there, but actually not many people are using them. So I think significant amount of lessons learned from just buying technology and expecting it to improve outcomes. If the plan's not there and kids aren't doing anything different with it, then you're not going to, you're only just going to get the same out. And actually, in some cases, you go backwards because kids then start dragging and dropping rather than writing long answers, you know, and then they kind of move away from sometimes those skills that they need in exams and that they're long written answers. So it can actually have a reverse effect at some point.
I think it's really well put, and the interactive whiteboard one is always a key one. You know, and particularly they're so expensive as well. I think, you know, all money spent is one of the main challenges we see going into schools, either underinvestment or overinvestment. Both are equally, you know, they have both equal negative effects in some ways. We're rapidly running out of time, which is a real shame. But is anyone else who's got a quick insight into a mistake or lesson learned that they'd be willing to offer? I'm going to open it up to the floor. Might have to do answers first if there's anything in particular.
I'll add something. Yeah, kind of going on from what John was saying. We found that there was lots of kit being bought around the place. So what we've decided to do is put a makerspace in place in the college so that my team kind of can explore its uses of it innovatively around the different pedagogies as well. So a lot of teachers are scared of using tech. So we support them to try these different new technologies, but also it's more important that they're trying the new pedagogies as well. So we're really pushing more collaborative, more learner-led type approaches, but the technology's there to support them, but they don't have to worry about it not working. So they're more inclined to try these new approaches, which is a really good step forward, and it's been really successful. The feedback we're getting from learners is really, really good. So we're rolling that out across other sites of the college now.
I love that idea. It's just something slightly different, isn't it, to freshen things up and try and make almost give access to that kind of kit, but without having to fork out the huge amounts of money, you know, at all costs.
Yeah, so it's a centralized resource that everyone can book into. So it's used all the time. So it's not being stuck in a cupboard, and you only use it when it's appropriate as well for that particular subject area. So yeah,
that's brilliant. Anyone else at all? I've probably got about a minute. If there's anyone else. Derek?
Matt, just to throw in, I think, so, you know, historically, I haven't aligned vision with strategy, with policy, with spend as effectively as I could have done. And we've gone down cul-de-sacs there. And it's the fitness for purpose. It isn't just about purchasing kit for the sake of it. It's what does that mean for teaching and learning and the experiences of our young people, and grounding that in you know, in that alignment, I think, of vision, strategy and policy.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I think the what we think about as digital strategy has changed so much, you know, over the past few years in particular. You know, you look at the introduction of cloud-based working, it's much more a part of absolutely everything that we do, isn't it? We talk about education going through a bit of a state of reset at the moment, or has been for a number of years with the introduction of the cloud, so to speak. It's completely redefined what a digital strategy actually means on a variety of levels. So absolutely couldn't agree more. Unfortunately, I've got to end it there because we're going to run out of time, unfortunately. But for those of you that are watching, have a look at our Twitter feed, because we've got John, Derek, Hannah and Lucy. They're all copied into various tweets. One of the reasons we've got them here is not just for their insight, but we also know they're exceptionally helpful online if people have got questions and that kind of thing. So if there's any support you need, I'm sure they won't mind me just saying that they're available to answer the odd question or two. But that just leaves me just to say thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for this session. And I hope we can do it again in the future, actually, maybe make it a little bit longer.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, so if I just remove that, we are at the end of the day. It's been a fantastic day. We've thoroughly enjoyed it. We've talked about a lot. We've covered a lot. Please remember that everything is available online on our YouTube channel. So you can watch it as many times as you wish. The webinars are all there, so if you need to provide a little bit of staff training potentially, you could put some of those webinars on just to give a bit of an insight into how to use some of those tools. Very much trying to provide that basic kind of entry point, I suppose, particularly for staff who are feeling a little bit overwhelmed with this new way of working. Additionally, what I'd just like to highlight, because we've been talking about it a lot today, is our online learning platform, AspireEd. And the reason I just want to highlight this is because the whole reason for developing this was we knew that the model had to change, particularly for schools. They had to get to a point where they were able to provide staff with cost-effective, high-quality teaching and learning materials to develop their own skills. As a platform, we've tried to make it as comprehensive but as straightforward as possible. So there's lots of interactive, intuitive courses. There are articles and blogs. All the courses are focused around some of the three main players, as we call them, three tech giants: Google, Microsoft, and Apple. And all of the courses here, for our Welsh colleagues, we are working on translating those into the medium of Welsh. We have some already, but you can see here we've got a vast array of different courses that you're able to access. And as part of a school subscription, you can see the code on the screen. We are offering 20% off all of our school subscriptions. And even as an individual, if you just want to do a bit of CPD, just to find out a little bit more about how to use Google Classroom or how to use Seesaw or Microsoft Teams, then you can access those individually and just take a look at the reviews just to see, you know, what kind of impact it can have. That's pretty much all we wanted to say with regards to AspireEd. Let us know if you've got any questions. Really, that just leaves me to close out the day. I want to say thank you, obviously, to all of our wonderful speakers, truly inspiring, informative insights, as expected, which has been great. To all of the Aspire to Be presenters, showcasing all of the different tools for teaching and learning. We had a bit of a couple of interesting times trying to get all those webinars out at the right time, but our fantastic team has sorted that. And also a big thank you to our two unsung heroes, I should probably say, Craig Maloney and Sophie Yates. Sophie has developed all of the graphics in the background to make it a visual success. And I won't bring him onto the screen now because he's probably not expecting it, but Craig has pretty much produced the entire conference today. It wouldn't have worked without him, so thank you very much on that note. And a final thank you goes to you, the audience. We really hope you enjoyed the day and that you're able to implement some of the tools and the ideas and the strategies to help you through these times. We're always here to help. If you require any support or would like to learn more about how we can work with you, just please get in touch through our website. Take care, and we'll see you soon.